After 73 years of unity under King David and his son King Solomon, the kingdoms of Judah and Israel separated again. The explanation for this is given in the first book of Kings, chapter 11, and it is basically due to the fact that King Solomon did not keep the covenant and the laws of God that he should have kept, and some will be listed shortly. Solomon was told that the kingdom will be torn from him and will be given to his servant, but it will not be done during his life for the sake of his father, King David, but during the reign of his son. The decision has been made. The kingdom will be divided. Later in chapter 11, we are being introduced to Jeroboam from the tribe of Ephraim. Jeroboam, son of Nebat from Ha-Tzredah, meaning the Tzredah. Jeroboam was a servant to Solomon, and then it is written in chapter 11, and he lifted up his hand against the king, meaning that he rebelled against King Solomon. And the cause is something that occurred during the time King Solomon built the Millo and repaired the breach in the city of David. Apparently the Millo was some kind of massive construction project in Jerusalem. How does this relate to the revolt? It is unclear. There are several opinions. I will expand on this later. And then we are told later in the chapter that Jeroboam was a mighty warrior. Continuing with chapter 11 of the first book of Kings, Ahijah, the prophet from Shiloh, found Jeroboam when he was wearing a new robe. Ahijah took hold of it and tore it into 12 pieces. He gave Jeroboam 10 pieces, representing the 10 tribes of the kingdom of Israel without Judah. Jeroboam had a passive role. The decision by God was carried out through Ahijah, the prophet, and all this due to Solomon's behavior, taking many foreign wives and worshipping their gods. Whether Ashtar, the god of Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Milcom, the god of Ammon. On the one hand, Jeroboam was told he would receive divine support to build a glorious kingdom, but at the same time, there was no intention of abandoning the kingdom of Judah for a long time. When King Solomon heard about the intention to split his kingdom, he was looking to kill Jeroboam, apparently so that the prophecy of Ahijah would not come true. Jeroboam decided to flee to Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of King Solomon, and then King Rehoboam, Solomon's son, reigned under him. This is undoubtedly one of the most important royal events in the Hebrew Bible. In terms of our location, we are a few hundred meters southeast of the settlement of Bduel, and under the city of Ha-Tzredah, we are about 1 kilometer from there. In the historical site in Israel website, there is explanation of possible routes from Peduel to Ha-Tzredah, which was much more than just Jeroboam's hometown. We'll take advantage of the nice view and talk for a minute about the name and identification of the place. It is written, and Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, the Ephraimite, from Ha-Tzredah. This is the sentence in chapter 11 that introduced us to Jeroboam. One clarification, Ha-Tzredah means the Tzredah. Tzredah appears only in this verse in the entire Hebrew Bible. From the verse, Tzredah located in the boundaries of the area given to the tribe of Ephraim. The name Tzredah was preserved in Arabic in a cistern called Bir Tzredah in Wadi Tzredah, and I will point its location once we arrive to Tzredah. Yet the name is written in the Hebrew Bible as Ha-Tzredah. How does this make a difference? So many of the names that receives the Ha prefix describe the location of the site in a way that it is prominent and unique in its surroundings. The Septuagint helps us in identifying Ha-Tzredah by adding that Ha-Tzredah was not only Jeroboam's birthplace, but a fortified city that is a high place. And indeed, the path leading to the top of the cliff where Ha-Tzredah is located passed through fortresses dating back to the time of Jeroboam. We are in one of those forts located here because the slope of the ascent from the northeast is the most moderate, and therefore the attackers would most probably come from that direction. Another fort is on the southwest side of Ha-Tzredah, and I hope we will have time to visit it today. The name Ha-Tzredah has several meanings in Hebrew. One is the largest fingers on the hand, which is the middle finger. And indeed, the cliff on which remains of the site is certainly prominent above the surface. Another meaning for Ha-Tzredah is dryness. And this interpretation is also relevant to the cliff top that was barren of crops. And this is unlike the surrounding lands where there are many agriculture crops. I mentioned the Septuagint. This is the first complete translation to the Hebrew Bible into a foreign language, into Greek, and it was originally intended to be used by the Greek-speaking Jews who lived in the Mediterranean countries, actually in Alexandria, Egypt. The translation began in the 3rd century BC and lasted for several hundred years. We will ascend to the cliff line. What a spectacular view. Few hundred meters in front of us is the magnificent horseshoe that the Shiloh Brook created. We are at the birthplace of Jeroboam ben Nebat, the first Israeli king after the division of the United Kingdom of Judah and Israel. We are located in Horvat Bint Bar, a place identified by most researchers as the site of the biblical Ha-Tzredah. The finds of pottery and the ruin at the site indicate that there was a well-fortified settlement here during the time of Jeroboam. The cliff here serves as a natural fortification for the place. We are at an altitude of 312 meters above sea level, surrounded by steep slope, hills, mountains. There are several cisterns here for storing water. You can see canals curved into the ground all around that enable the water to flow into the cisterns. There are also various agriculture facilities, mainly wine presses and small agricultural facilities for producing olive oil. The remains of the city itself are at the northwestern corner of the top, and most of the remains are now buried under the terraces planted with olive trees. The houses of the 4 spaces were also found in the city. These are typical houses in the Iron Age, the Israeli period, when a house consisted of 4 rooms. 3 of them are rectangular and equal in size. The 4th is also rectangular and borders the 3 and is perpendicular to them. This is no doubt an Israeli site from the biblical period. A wonderful view from here of the coastal plain, the Gofna Mountains and the Shiloh Brook, which is one of the main tributaries of the Archaeology River. I also mentioned that I will show you where Ha-Tzredah is. If you look at the horseshoe on the right side, as the brook starts to curve to the right, this is where Ha-Tzredah is, probably about 100 meters from the curve. You can also see from here the remains of a square structure built of large fieldstones. This is a fort from the Israeli period that was used as a guard point on the road from southwest leading up to Ha-Tzredah. The walls of the fortress are from a later period, but the southern wall, built of large and impressive stones, is from the Iron Age, the Israeli period. We talked about many small agricultural facilities. This is one of them. And again, there are many water channels and cisterns all around us. Let's go back to Jeroboam and the first book of Kings, chapter 12, where we are told that Rehoboam, son of Solomon, went to Shechem, where Jeroboam and the people of Israel spoke to Rehoboam, asking him to reduce the taxes and the workload, as it was almost slavery for the people. A logical request at that time from a new king. But there is another important piece of information. The period of Solomon is known on the one hand for its aura of wealth and wisdom, but on the other hand, it is a period of a kind of slavery life for the people. The people of Israel worked very hard in the days of King Solomon. Part of the time for the purpose of building the temple, a noble goal, and yet look at the numbers that the Hebrew Bible mentions. Regarding those working to build the temple, King Solomon had 70,000 porters and 80,000 pourers, beside the officers, 3,300 people who ruled and punished when needed the people doing the work. This is not a type of slavery, it is slavery for the people. So it should not be a surprise that the people's frustration was about to lead to a revolt. Let's return again to the reason of Jeroboam revolt as described in chapter 11. King Solomon built the Millo, closing the breach of the city of David, his father. As I mentioned, this is a significant construction project, but doesn't assist us in understanding the reason for the revolt. Now, in the first book of Kings, chapter 9, we are told that Pharaoh's daughter went up from the city of David to her house that Solomon built for her. Then he built the Millo. Is the Millo project part of building a private palace for Pharaoh's daughter? If the people were worked like slaves for this purpose, then it is certainly understandable if this is what led them to revolt. I return to chapter 12, verse 6, where we are told that King Rehoboam consulted the elders, the ones that consulted to Solomon his father. He asked for their opinion on what he should respond to the people regarding tax relief and reducing the public workload. They suggested he should agree to reduce the burden of labor and taxes, and that will lead them to be his servant forever. Then he consulted with the children that were brought up with him, and they consulted the opposite. He should increase the burden of tax and workload. The use of the word elders and children is misleading. Rehoboam's age at the time of the accession was 41, which was considered very old at that time. The elders were the tribe leaders who had gained the trust of the tribe to make decisive decisions, as well as act as judges. Rehoboam replied to the people at the third day with the famous words, "My father punished you with whips, but I will punish you with scorpions." And the revolt began. Rehoboam fled to Jerusalem. The Israelites called Jeroboam and made him king over the 10 tribes of Israel. Initially, he used Shechem, today named Nablus by the Arab, as his capital. Later, he moved his capital to Penuel, which is east to the Jordan River, and then to Tirzah in northern Samaria. The Israelites went 3 times a year to offer sacrifice in the temple in Jerusalem, which was outside the territory of the 10 tribes. That made Jeroboam concerned that the people will be convinced by Rehoboam, king of Judah, to return and be under his rule. So Jeroboam made 2 calves of gold. He repeated the sin of the calf. Yet there might be other angles to this story, which I will not address in this video. I must admit that we have not yet fully explored the character and actions of Jeroboam, the first king of Israel after the division of the United Kingdom. He reigned for 22 years between 9028 and 907 BC. I promise to find opportunity and further elaborate on Jeroboam. And finally, a question for you. After Tirzah, which was the most significant capital city of the Kingdom of Israel? The answer, as usual, in 5 seconds.